kind of fear that spreads silently through a paddock when the fastest rider on the grid suddenly stops moving after a violent crash. Not celebration, not glory, not triumph. Pain, pressure, uncertainty. Le Mans was supposed to become Marc Marquez's rebirth. After years of injuries, surgeries, and endless questions about whether he could still reach his old level, the Ducati Lenovo rider arrived in France looking unstoppable. Marc Marquez has shaken the MotoGP world once again. But this time, it wasn't because of another victory. It wasn't because of another impossible save. And it wasn't because of another chapter of domination. It was because of fear. Real fear. The kind of fear that spreads silently through a paddock when the fastest rider on the grid suddenly stops moving after a violent crash. Not celebration. Not glory, not triumph, pain, pressure, uncertainty. Le Mans was supposed to become Marc Marquez's rebirth. After years of injuries, surgeries, and endless questions about whether he could still reach his old level, the Ducati Lenovo rider arrived in France looking unstoppable. He shattered the all-time lap record. He claimed pole position with authority. Every sector of the circuit seemed to belong to him. The rhythm was back. The aggression was back. The confidence was back. For the first time in a long time, the paddock started whispering the same dangerous sentence again. Marc Marquez is becoming Marc Marquez again. And that sentence terrified everyone. Because when Marquez finds rhythm, chaos usually follows. Ducati finally looked complete. The latest developments on the Desmos Adichie had transformed the bike into a weapon perfectly suited to Marc's riding style. The front end feeling improved. Corner entry became sharper. The bike finally responded the way Marquez demanded. Together, rider and machine looked inevitable. All about control. All about precision. All about domination. But MotoGP never waits for fairy tales to finish. Just hours after rewriting the record books, everything exploded. During the sprint race, Marc suffered a terrifying high-side crash that instantly froze the entire paddock.
The replay looked brutal. His Ducati launched him violently into the air before slamming him onto the asphalt with horrifying force. Helmets turned toward the giant screen. Mechanics stopped moving. And inside the Ducati garage, silence swallowed everything. No celebration, no strategy discussions, only panic. Because everyone understood immediately, this was not a normal crash. Medical teams rushed toward the scene while fans inside Le Mans watched in disbelief. The rider who had looked invincible only moments earlier was suddenly lying broken beside the circuit. And then came the reports. A broken leg, emergency surgery, additional complications involving the right shoulder, the same shoulder that had haunted Marc Marquez for years, the same shoulder that nearly destroyed his career after 2020, the same shoulder that carried the scars of countless recoveries, the same shoulder that never truly healed. Too many crashes, too many surgeries, too many battles. For years, Marquez fought through pain without allowing the world to see weakness. Even when his body was collapsing underneath him, he still smiled in front of cameras and attacked corners like nothing had changed. But this time felt different. For the first time in years, Marc finally admitted something many feared was true. His body has never fully recovered.
That confession hit harder than the crash itself, because Marc Marquez was never supposed to sound vulnerable. He was the rider who made pain look temporary, the rider who treated injuries like obstacles instead of endings. But now, after another violent accident, the MotoGP world started asking the question nobody wanted to ask. How much longer can this continue? Not just about speed, not just about talent, about survival. Ducati reacted immediately. The factory confirmed that Marc Marquez would miss the main Le Mans race and would also sit out the Catalonia Grand Prix. A devastating decision for the championship, the team, and MotoGP itself. Because Marc isn't just another rider. He is tension. He is rivalry. He is spectacle. MotoGP without Marc Marquez feels quieter, smaller, less dangerous. And suddenly, retirement rumors returned stronger than ever. Inside the paddock, whispers grew louder. Some believed Marc could still come back stronger. Others quietly feared that modern MotoGP had finally become too brutal, even for him. The bikes are faster. The races are tighter. The crashes are more violent. And age waits for nobody. Yet even in the middle of uncertainty, one thing remained unchanged. Marc Marquez still refused to surrender. While recovering from surgery, his focus immediately shifted toward returning as quickly as possible. Not because he wanted sympathy, not because he wanted headlines, because racers only understand one language: the next race.
The body breaks. The spirit fights. The fire survives. Meanwhile, the championship battle exploded into complete chaos. With Marquez sidelined, the spotlight shifted toward two riders rapidly becoming the center of MotoGP 2026, Jorge Martin and Marco Bezzecchi. Two completely different personalities, two completely different styles, one championship war. Bezzecchi has built his campaign on ruthless consistency. He rarely makes mistakes. He doesn't always dominate weekends, but he always collects points. In modern MotoGP, that kind of consistency can become more dangerous than raw speed itself. Martin, however, represents pure aggression. When Jorge finds momentum, he attacks like a storm. Late braking, violent corner entry, relentless pace. He rides every lap like the championship depends on it. And now, with Marc injured, both riders sense opportunity. Not patience, not caution, not mercy. Attack, pressure, survival. The tension between them is becoming impossible to ignore. Bezzecchi knows Martin is hunting him. Martin knows Bezzecchi is protecting the championship lead.
And MotoGP fans know one mistake could change everything. That's what makes this season so dangerous. Every race now feels heavier. Every overtake feels personal. Every crash feels catastrophic. And somewhere in the middle of all that chaos stands Ducati, caught between protecting its injured superstar and trying to maintain control of the championship fight. Because even though Marc Marquez is temporarily absent, his shadow still controls the paddock. Every rider feels it. Every team understands it. Every rival watches for the moment he returns. The biggest question now is no longer whether Marc Marquez is fast enough. Everyone already knows he is. The real question is whether his body can survive long enough for one final war. Not about records, not about statistics, about legacy. Because legends are not remembered for the easy victories. They are remembered for the moments they refuse to disappear. And Marc Marquez has never disappeared quietly. But the deeper fear inside the paddock was not only about broken bones or missed races. It was about time. MotoGP is merciless to riders who lose rhythm. One injury becomes two. One absence becomes doubt. And doubt, in a championship this brutal, spreads faster than fire in dry grass. Marc Marquez knows that better than anyone. Not just speed, not just talent, not just courage. Timing, momentum, survival. That is the real currency of modern MotoGP. Inside Ducati, emergency meetings reportedly began immediately after the medical results arrived. Engineers, doctors, and management all face the same terrifying question. How much more can Marc's body endure?
For years, Ducati dreamed about having Marquez in red. The dream finally became reality.
But now, after another devastating crash, the factory suddenly faces a nightmare it never wanted to imagine. And perhaps the most painful part is this. Marc was finally beginning to look complete again. Le Mans was supposed to be proof of rebirth. The lap record, the pole position, the confidence on corner entry, the aggression under braking. Everything felt familiar again. Fans saw flashes of the old Marc, the rider who once made impossible victories look routine, the rider who terrified entire grids before the lights even went out. Then came the high side. One violent moment. One brutal launch into the sky. And suddenly, the comeback story turned into another medical battle. All about hope, all about heartbreak, all about how quickly destiny changes. Several former riders have already started speaking publicly about the physical cost of Marc's riding style. Modern MotoGP machines demand precision, but Marquez has always ridden beyond precision. He rides with instinct, with chaos, with saves that defy physics. That style made him legendary, but it also punished his body harder than almost anyone else on the grid. Now, every crash carries a heavier consequence. Every impact echoes long